All right, welcome back to the Top 25 Voter Pod. Bryce Cherry here with John Werner, who votes on the Top 25 men's poll. I vote on the Top 25 women's poll, hence the name of the podcast. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, but I'm wondering, did you steal one of my plaid shirts?
We do call you Johnny Plaid sometimes, and I do have a few plaid shirts myself, so
All right, well, I like the look.
you could consider this a tribute if you want.
Okay.
John, so big happenings for the Baylor Bears as Jonathan. So, by the way, they were pronouncing his name a little bit differently on the broadcast, and I don't know if you saw my tweet.
I did.
Yeah. So apparently it's Jonathan Tchamwa Tchatchoua.
Okay.
We've been calling him Tchamwa Tchatchoua
Right.
all these years. Let's just call him Everyday Jon.
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, but so Everyday Jon returned to the court last Saturday against Texas Tech. Of course, that got a rousing ovation from the fans there at the Farrell Center. What does his return, unexpected as it might be, mean for these Bears?
Well, just him being back really uplifts the team, the fans. I mean, pretty much anytime he touched the ball Saturday, there's just a huge roar. And, he's such a likable guy. And, his teammates call him the heart of the team, even when he was out. He was on the sideline, like mentoring guys and, just helping other guys out. And certainly his defense is going to help them. I think it already has. He was the co-defensive player of the year last year in the Big 12. And that's even missing the last month of the season. So, his defense, obviously. But, man, he gives them another three-point shooting guy out there. I mean, he's hit 4 out of 5. I didn't really see that coming, but
clearly he's been working on that part of his game.
But he's just such a great story, and I really think he's going to boost this team down the stretch.
One of the things that we talked about Baylor's missing ingredient a little bit earlier in the season was just kind of a tough guy, kind of a guy like Everyday Jon. And now they have that in the presence of Everyday Jon.
Yeah.
I think it's ginormous for the Bears. It's not like on a college team you can make a trade at the trade deadline, or whatever. You do that in the off season, but to get a player of his caliber and his experience back essentially in the middle of the year, it's a boost, no doubt. And I saw a tweet from a guy, I think he goes by Cyclone Larry, and he's just one of these guys that tweets a lot about the Big 12. And I think someone who I follow retweeted it because I'm not sure I follow Cyclone Larry, but he said something to the effect of, and he was retweeting himself from like a month or two ago and saying that if Baylor got JTT back, that, they were one of the championship contenders, now they have him back, and I'm not so sure this guy isn't wrong. I mean, I think it definitely amplifies their chances.
Oh, no question about that. It's such a tight race. Texas leads 8-3. You got 4 teams, a game behind them: Baylor, K-State, Kansas, Iowa State. And a week ago we kind of went over this, and I didn't really like Baylor's chances a whole lot, but I think they're not bad now. I mean, they've still got some really tough road games. They got a swing where they go to Kansas and K-State back to back. And they still have to go to Oklahoma State, which has turned around its season lately. They're 6-5 in the Big 12. they're looking like a probable NCAA tournament team. But yeah, I think they've got a pretty good shot. They've got Texas at home. They got Iowa State at home. So I think they've got about as good a shot as anybody now.
Yeah, expand on that a little bit more. Obviously, like you said, it's a really jumbled race with Texas, and then right behind them, Baylor, Kansas, K-State, Iowa State. It's not easy to win a Big 12 championship. It's certainly not easy to win 3 in a row.
Exactly.
But with Everyday Jon in the lineup now, and that 3-point shooting prowess that he brings, man, maybe they'll just recreate their whole offense, run it like a 5-out, like a lot of the like Iowa State women or something. Yeah, basically have shooters at every position. But how do you see the race kind of shaking out?
Yeah, gosh, K-State, I think they still got a pretty good chance, just looking at their schedule. Their road games are at Tech, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. So those are all, at least winnable games, I think. Let's see, Kansas, they've got a pretty favorable schedule too. They go to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, TCU, Iowa State. Let's see, they got to go to K-State, Texas, and Baylor. So that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
That's pretty tough. And let's see what Texas has left on the road. They've got, let's see, they've got Tech, Baylor, and TCU. So that's not as difficult as some schedules. I don't know. I still kind of like K-State's chances. Texas, since they still have a game lead, I think has a pretty good shot. But man, it's pretty wide open between those 5 teams.
Yeah, it's a little bit of so they're in your home on your little patio. You have a dartboard,
Right.
and we've been known to fling a few darts when we come over to your house. I think that's the Big 12 championship race right now. You're just
flinging an analogy. Yeah.
You're flinging darts, man, because it's really tight, and it's going to come down to 1 or 2, really key games at the end, I think. So,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, should be fun for sure. So, meanwhile, on the women's side, Baylor on Tuesday night had a 12-point lead in the second half. They had a 5-point lead with 24 seconds to go.
Right.
There was 1 lead change in that game, Jon, against Oklahoma. 1. And yet they managed to lose that game to the Sooners at home on Tuesday night, 98-92 in overtime. Just how does that happen? You were watching it, working the desk. I was obviously there. And how big of a blow is this to Baylor as it tries to go for another Big 12 championship?
Oh, to me, that was an almost impossible game to lose, yet they lost.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of turnovers at the end. And it looked like they just got a little rattled for some reason, even though they were playing at home. They had a big lead. It was really weird that way that game slipped away. Now, obviously, OU has a really good offense. They can score and get on runs. But man, that just should not have happened. And I think it's a huge blow for their Big 12 championship chances.
Yes, I agree. I think at the end of the year, they're going to look back and circle February the 7th as the day that the Big 12 championship got away from them. I mean, I don't know any other way to look at it. They're really going to have to make some hay now. I mean, because they've got ground to make up. But how does it happen? Like you said, it's almost inexplicable. I mean, I don't know. You know how you're watching these football games and you see like the odds of winning of a team like in live time, this team
Right.
this team has a whatever percent chance of winning. Up 12 in the second half, up 5 with 24 seconds to go. I bet it was over 90%, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But so OU scores on a layup and, you know, cuts it to 3, but you still have the ball, but you throw away the ball. And then they get the ball to the best shooter in NCAA history in Taylor Robertson. Bam, 3-pointer, tie game. And then Baylor still had a shot at the last, shot in regulation. They got a really good look for Jamie Asbury. Jamie Asbury did not have a good shooting game, and she has those kind of games where she is off. I mean, this is like I've said it all year, but this is a really streaky shooting team.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it had a lot less to do with streak shooting or whatever. Baylor did enough offensively to win the game. You scored 92 points.
Yeah.
The problem was, now you mentioned OU's offense, and it is really, really good. And some of their half court sets where they just found someone cut into the goal for an easy 2, they were really, really nicely executed plays.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they are incredible offensively, but where I think people may not realize how good the Sooners are is as a turnover creating machine on defense, because they're just really, really aggressive.
Okay.
And Nikki Collin knew that going into the game. She talked about it before the first time. She broke her finger before the first game with OU while she was trying to demonstrate just how physical they were going to be. And so, they knew that was the MO of the Sooners, that they were going to scratch and claw and grab and everything. And meanwhile, and I love Sarah Andrews. We've talked about her. She's the best guard in the Big 12. But how about if they are going to be scratching and clawing and grabbing, don't drive into the middle of 3 of them. You know, they were going right into the teeth of that defense and coughing up the ball. And they had 21 turnovers. 17 of those came in the second half and overtime.
Oof,
I mean, you just can't.
That'll kill you.
Yeah, that will kill you. So a bad loss for Baylor. They got to go to Oklahoma State on Saturday. Can they bounce back? We'll see. OSU actually beat Baylor in Waco earlier in the season. So, that was a tough one, because they did everything to win that game and somehow found a way to lose it. So, meanwhile, on Sunday, we have a big game coming. And obviously, we have the Super Bowl. But in women's basketball, we have the Super Duper Bowl, because we have number 1 South Carolina versus number 3 LSU. And both teams are undefeated. Should be a lot of fun. I mean, to get 2 undefeated teams going at each other this late in the season is always cool. How do you see this one kind of playing out? And what do you make about Kim Mulkey's comments? She said about Dawn Staley this week, I have absolutely zero conflict with Dawn Staley. What I have for her is respect.
The conflict part, I think she might have been laying low a little on that, because Kim pretty much has a conflict with everybody except maybe Bill Finley or maybe a couple other coaches.
Well, and I think even Bill's probably gotten on her list a time or two.
Yeah. Now, that statement was in reference to, I think near the end of last season, Dawn Staley said, Nikki Fargas, the former LSU coach, did a really good job of that program. She just didn't have the support Kim had, since Kim has come in the last 2 years. And I kind of wonder how Kim took that comment. Probably not real well, considering the success she's had there. But yeah, as far as the game, I see South Carolina winning. They're playing at home. they've been there. They've been a really great program for a long time. But yeah, it should be interesting. I think neither of those two schools has really played a very tough schedule, though. I mean,
South Carolina infinitely more than LSU, though.
yeah, they did beat Stanford earlier this year.
They beat UConn just this week, but
beat UConn, yeah. But you look at the SEC; it's pretty much those two teams,
that's
and
correct.
it's not like the Big 12 where you got tough teams up and down the board. But yeah, it should be a great game, though.
So, I also wonder how much Kim's comments might have been in relation to the little verbal back and forth that Geno and Don got into this week. So I don't know if you saw any of that, but UConn did lose to South Carolina. And then UConn turned around and lost again. And it was their first 2-game losing streak in, I don't know, a lot of years, which just, again, a testament to just how consistent the Huskies have been.
They're clearly on the decline.
Well, and here's the funny thing, we talk about Baylor's struggles. We talk about, UConn losing 2 in a row. Well, UConn's not playing with Paige Beckers.
Right.
Baylor would be a little bit of a different team with Asia Blackwell and Dre Edwards in there, 2 SEC, all SEC front court players. So, to a certain extent, I think you got to cut these programs a little bit of slack. But now, after the game, the UConn South Carolina game, Geno talked about how physical South Carolina was, and he mentioned that one of their players had bruises all over her, and Don was not real happy with those comments, and just
not that bad,
took umbrage with it. And but one of the things I will say that's fun about Don Staley, Geno Auriemma, and Kim Mulkey is those 3 are not afraid to just say whatever the crap they have to.
Right. Right. That makes things interesting.
Oh, it does. They're colorful. Like, Tara Vanderveer is probably more like close to the vest, and stuff. But those 3 are just going to say whatever they want. And so, yeah, it should be fun. I tend to agree with you on that South Carolina should win this game. Now, I think LSU is very good. I think Angel Reese, again, I've mentioned her name on the podcast before, is an incredible player. She's a transfer that they have just turned into a double-double machine for them at LSU. And LSU's riding high. But it's hard to know just how good they are because, as you said, the schedule that they've played this year is, right. They've played one top 25 team. They've played that team in conference play. That means they played Bagel 0 in non-conference. And so they might get exposed. We'll see. Now, they might have all their chips in on this game and give the best effort that they've got all season. And can they give South Carolina a game? Yes. Can they beat South Carolina? Probably. But I'm with you. I think South Carolina playing at home with the experience they have, defending national champions, maybe a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. One more thing, we were talking about coaches saying stuff. I've got a little story for you. So last week, maybe last weekend, I'm spilling the tea here. I'm not sure I'm supposed to do this, but I guess Chip Gaines had a little party for Scott Drew for 20 years at Baylor and all he's done and all this. And it was I guess a private event or whatever, but I think there was a fair amount of people there. And one of the things they did was they had a video with other coaches around the country, sharing their sentiment, their feelings about Scott, nice little warm, fuzzy feelings. And I got shared a video privately that Geno Auriemma sent for Scott.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And the video starts off by saying he's sitting at his desk, just like this, and he's like, I got this call, and it came from Waco, Texas. And I was like, oh, this can't be good.
Right.
And so then he goes on to talk about how Scott, has done this amazing job in 20 years at Baylor. And he comes from a great basketball family, and talked about how he really watched Baylor's national championship run with great interest, a couple years ago. But at the end, he said, but really, Scott, your greatest achievement is lasting 20 years with Kim Mulkey. Zing!
Yeah, you're right about this.
I thought that was pretty funny. It did not get, first of all, it did not get put out on social media. Apparently, even at the event, they cut off the end of that so that part of it wasn't on there, so that any Kim Mulkey, diehards out there wouldn't lose their minds. But I think it's pretty freaking funny.
Yeah, and you're like you said, those are coaches that speak their minds, and they don't really care what people think.
Right. And Geno wouldn't have said it if he knew. I mean, he knew it was going to get out there. With the world of social media now, it was going to get out there. So I'm not sure I was supposed to spill the tea, but I saw that video and I had a pretty good laugh. So.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So there you go. Scott Drew's greatest achievement.
It'd definitely be right up there.
Yeah, for sure. Put it on your resume, Scott. All right. We'll be back to chuckle some more again next week.